Imagine waking up each morning with the same dull ache in your joints, the same fatigue that seems to cling no matter how much you rest, and the quiet worry that perhaps nothing will truly help. Now imagine hearing that a simple oil, one you could hold in the palm of your hand, might awaken the body's own power to heal. It's not an exotic extract from a faraway jungle, nor a modern pharmaceutical born in a sterile lab. It is something ancient, humble, and yet in the right hands, remarkably potent. This is the realm of Edgar Cayce, often called the sleeping prophet, whose thousands of psychic readings left behind an intricate map of natural remedies, spiritual principles, and holistic health practices. Among them, one method stands out for its simplicity and power: the Castor oil pack. To Cayce, it wasn't just oil. It was what he once described as a gift from nature that could coax the body back toward balance, harmony, and vitality. Castor oil itself is thick, golden, with a faint nutty scent. Pressed from the seeds of the ricinus communis plant, it had been used for centuries, sometimes as a laxative, sometimes as a skin soother, and even as a lamp oil in ancient temples. But Cayce's insight was different. He saw in it the ability to stir life in the very systems that keep us well, particularly the lymphatic system, the liver, and the intricate networks of circulation. He described how a simple piece of cotton flannel, soaked in castor oil, placed over the right area of the body, and warmed for a gentle hour or two, could set in motion processes that modern medicine was only beginning to understand. To the untrained ear, it might sound too easy, too old-fashioned to be real. But for the many who tried it under Cayce's guidance, relief often came quietly, sometimes dramatically, whether it was in easing arthritic pain, softening digestive troubles, or helping the body clear away lingering toxins. Think of it. Not a harsh purge or a radical diet, but a calm ritual. Warmth, rest, and oil, inviting the body to do what it was designed to do. The more you read through Cayce's case histories, the more you sense a theme. Healing, he believed, was rarely about attacking disease directly. Instead, it was about creating the conditions in which health naturally reasserts itself. As we step into this story, it's worth pausing to consider why such a remedy has endured for more than a century since Cayce spoke of it. In a world quick to discard the old for the new, the castor oil pack remains because it works, not as a magic bullet, but as a gentle nudge, a reminder to the body of its own resilience. But where did Cayce's journey with castor oil begin? What was it in his early readings that first drew attention to this unassuming oil? And how did it become a cornerstone of his natural healing legacy? That's where our path turns next. The first mention of castor oil in Edgar Cayce's readings wasn't dressed in grand predictions or mystical riddles. It appeared quietly, almost as if it were just another detail in a long list of suggestions. But for the person on the receiving end, that detail changed everything. It was the early 1920s. A woman in her late 40s came to Cayce seeking relief from a persistent digestive disorder. She had tried the tonics and powders of her day, followed doctor's orders, and still lived with discomfort that colored every meal. When Cayce entered his trance state, his voice, calm and deliberate, described a process that seemed deceptively simple. She was to soak a piece of flannel in castor oil, place it over her abdomen, and apply gentle heat for an hour each evening. No special equipment, no expensive ingredients, just oil, cloth, and warmth. At first, she was skeptical. Castor oil was something her mother had given her as a child, usually to unpleasant effect. It was a laxative, not a healing balm. But something in Cayce's tone, and in the way he connected the oil to her body's own systems, persuaded her to try. The first session felt odd, thick, slightly sticky oil against her skin, the slow bloom of warmth from the hot water bottle. She didn't expect much, yet within a week she noticed her belly felt softer, less bloated. Her energy was steadier. Meals no longer brought the same dread. This was not an isolated story. Around the same time, Cayce recommended the same therapy to a man crippled with arthritis in his knees and hips. His days were marked by stiffness and nights by aching that kept him awake. Cayce's advice mirrored the woman's. Oil, cloth, warmth, repeated daily. The man began to notice that while the pack was on, the pain eased. Over weeks, the relief began to last beyond the treatment time. Movement returned, little by little. He still had arthritis, but it no longer ruled his life. As these cases multiplied, Cayce began to refine his descriptions. He spoke of the oil's ability to penetrate deeply, to influence circulation in tissues beneath the skin, and to encourage the movement of lymph, an invisible river that cleanses the body from within. He noted how the gentle heat seemed to amplify these effects, as if opening the body's inner channels. It's striking how Cayce's approach to healing always avoided the attack mindset common in medicine of his time. Rather than targeting the problem with force, he sought to nourish the systems that would, in turn, dissolve the problem naturally. The castor oil pack was a perfect example. It did not act as a drug, it did not force a reaction, it invited one. Within the Association for Research and Enlightenment, ARE, where Cayce's readings were preserved, the castor oil pack began appearing in more and more transcripts. Sometimes it was for digestive issues, sometimes for liver congestion, sometimes for menstrual pain, or swollen lymph nodes, or sluggish elimination. Each time, the instructions were much the same, but the intention was tailored to the person. This personalization made the remedy feel less like a recipe and more like a ritual. Those early revelations laid the foundation for what would become one of Cayce's most enduring contributions to natural health. From a few quiet cases, the castor oil pack emerged as a trusted ally in the quest for balance. And as word spread, people began to wonder, was Cayce uncovering something new, or was he reviving wisdom as old as humanity itself? To answer that, we have to go back, not just to Cayce's Kentucky roots, but centuries into the past, to the civilizations that first pressed the seeds of the castor bean and discovered its many faces. Long before Edgar Cayce ever spoke of castor oil in his trance readings, the plant that produced it had traveled through the hands of healers, traders, and farmers for thousands of years. Its story winds through ancient deserts, river valleys, and tropical coasts, a thread connecting civilizations that may never have known each other, yet shared an intuition about the oil's power. In the tombs of ancient Egypt, archaeologists have found castor beans sealed in clay jars, still bearing their distinctive mottled shells after more than 3 millennia. Papyrus scrolls record its use as a laxative, a balm for dry skin, and even as fuel for lamps in temples, its steady flame seen as a sign of purity. Egyptian midwives rubbed the oil into the skin of expectant mothers to ease childbirth, and priests anointed it onto the bodies of the sick in hopes of drawing out illness. To them, castor oil was both medicine and sacred tool. In India, castor oil appears in Ayurvedic texts dating back at least 2,000 years. Known as Iranda, it was prescribed to soothe inflamed joints, cleanse the bowels, and nourish the skin. Healers believed it carried a balancing energy, warming and dispersing blockages, whether physical or energetic. It was often combined with other herbs, but even on its own, it was respected as a reliable and gentle remedy. Across the Mediterranean, the ancient Greeks recorded its use in treating eye irritations, wounds, and muscle aches. Dioscorides, the famed physician of the 1st century, noted its thick consistency and deep penetrating qualities. Roman households kept it alongside olive oil and honey, not for cooking, but for tending to ailments that might otherwise linger. In Africa, indigenous healers valued the plant not only for its oil, but for its resilience. Castor plants could thrive in poor soil and during drought and heat, yet still yield seeds rich in potent oil. In some traditions, the plant's hardiness was a metaphor for human endurance, and using its oil was thought to pass that strength into the body. When Cayce began recommending castor oil packs in the early 20th century, he was, knowingly or not, tapping into this long and varied lineage. What made his guidance distinct was not the oil itself, it had been known for ages, but the method of its application. The ancient uses tended toward ingestion or surface anointing. Cayce's innovation was the sustained contact of oil against the skin, combined with warmth and stillness, to allow deeper absorption and systemic effect. It's easy to imagine Cayce in his quiet trance state, reaching across centuries in some invisible library, touching the same wisdom that Egyptian healers, Indian Vaidyas, and Greek physicians had once held. Yet he framed it for his own time, speaking in language that an ordinary person in the 1920s could follow. His method required no temple rituals, no rare herbs, only a cloth, some oil, and a source of gentle heat. This blend of ancient foundation and modern simplicity is part of why the castor oil pack has endured. It feels timeless, because it is. And as we move deeper into Cayce's explanation, we begin to see that his choice of castor oil was not random. It was tied to a very specific system within the body that, when supported, could transform a person's health from the inside out. That system, as Cayce described it, was one that most people of his era barely understood. A hidden river of life flowing beneath the skin. It was here that the castor oil worked its quiet magic. Edgar Cayce often spoke of the human body as a network of rivers and tributaries, with each current carrying life to every cell. One of the most overlooked of these systems, both in his day and even in ours, is the lymphatic system. Unlike the bloodstream, which pulses visibly through arteries and veins, the lymph moves quietly, without the push of a beating heart. It relies on the subtle squeeze of muscles, the expansion and contraction of breathing, and the body's movement to circulate. Cayce described the lymph as a cleansing tide, one that gathers up cellular waste, toxins, and debris, carrying them toward the liver and kidneys for processing. When the lymph moves freely, he said, the body thrives. When it stagnates, it's like a river choked with silt, sluggish, murky, and unable to nourish the land it passes through. This stagnation, in Cayce's view, could be a hidden root of many ailments: chronic inflammation, swelling, fatigue, and a weakened immune defense. Here is where the castor oil pack entered the picture. In his readings, Cayce explained that the oil's unique properties allowed it to penetrate the skin deeply, reaching tissues far beneath the surface. He spoke of how it seemed to awaken the lymphatic flow in the areas where it was applied. This wasn't just about softening the skin. It was about stirring movement in those quiet, hidden channels. The warmth of the pack played a key role. Heat dilates vessels, allowing fluids to flow more freely, and relaxes the muscles that might otherwise constrict those lymphatic pathways. Combined with the oil, the result was a gentle but steady encouragement of circulation, like loosening a logjam in a stream and watching the water resume its course. Modern anatomy confirms much of what Cayce hinted at. We now know that the lymphatic system is essential for immune surveillance, fluid balance, and the absorption of fats from the digestive tract. Yet unlike blood, lymph has no central pump, anything that can help mobilize it. Massage, movement, or perhaps the deep penetration of castor oil becomes valuable for maintaining health. Cayce's instructions were precise. Place the oil-soaked flannel over the targeted area, apply heat, and rest quietly. The stillness was not incidental. He believed that when the body is at rest, free from the pull of gravity's demands on activity, internal currents have the space to reorganize themselves. The mind, too, enters a state more receptive to healing. Many of his clients reported not only physical relief, but also a strange sense of clarity and calm after repeated use. It was as if freeing the lymphatic flow also eased some invisible burden on the spirit. Cayce would not have found this surprising. He often said that physical and spiritual health are intertwined, and that the removal of toxins from the body also helps to clear the channels for mental and emotional harmony. In practical terms, Cayce saw the lymphatic system as one of the body's front lines in resisting disease. If you kept those waters flowing, you could prevent many troubles before they had a chance to settle in. The castor oil pack was his way of giving that system a gentle push, restoring motion where there was stagnation. But the lymph was only part of the equation. There was another organ he emphasized repeatedly, a dense, reddish-brown structure just beneath the rib cage on the right side. To Cayce, this organ was not only a filter, but a cornerstone of vitality. Supporting it, he believed, could transform a person's health in ways they might never have imagined. In Edgar Cayce's view, the liver was far more than just a passive filter. He described it as a central power plant of the body, a vital hub where blood was cleansed, nutrients were processed, and energy was renewed. If the lymphatic system was the body's quiet river, the liver was its great harbor, where everything eventually arrived to be sorted, refined, and sent out again. Cayce often emphasized that when the liver is congested or overworked, the whole body feels it. Fatigue deepens, digestion slows. The skin can take on a dull, tired look. Even mood can shift, as if the weight of unprocessed waste seeps into the spirit itself. And in many of his readings, he pointed to this sluggish liver function as a hidden cause behind chronic illness. Here, the castor oil pack was not just a comfort. It was a targeted intervention. Cayce's instructions were clear. Apply the oil-soaked flannel directly over the liver area, just beneath the right rib cage. Add gentle heat, and let the combination of warmth and oil work for at least an hour. Do this daily for several days, then rest for a few, and repeat. He believed that the oil penetrated deeply enough to stimulate the liver's circulation, loosening congestion and encouraging it to process toxins more efficiently. Some of his descriptions sounded almost mechanical, as if he saw the liver as a great sponge being gently wrung out, flushing away what it no longer needed. Other times, he spoke more spiritually, likening the liver to a guardian at the gate of health. If it was strong and clear, the whole body would be better defended. One striking case from the ARE archives tells of a middle-aged man suffering from jaundice and digestive distress. Doctors had given him strict dietary restrictions, but saw little improvement. Following Cayce's guidance, he began a routine of castor oil packs over the liver, combined with mild dietary adjustments. Within 2 weeks, his skin color improved, his digestion steadied, and his energy returned. Whether the oil directly healed his liver or simply supported its natural processes, the change was undeniable. Cayce linked the health of the liver to the health of the blood itself. In his philosophy, pure blood was the foundation of healing, and the liver was the great purifier. By supporting this organ, the castor oil pack indirectly benefited the heart, the skin, the immune system, every part of the body that relied on clean, nourished blood Modern physiology lends some weight to these ideas. We now know that improved circulation in the liver can enhance its detoxification pathways, helping it process fats, hormones, and environmental toxins more efficiently. The gentle heat from the pack likely promotes vasodilation, while the oil's rich ricinoleic acid content may have anti-inflammatory effects. Still, for Cayce, the castor oil pack was never just a physical tool. It was also a moment to pause, to focus on healing, to align one's thoughts with the body's restoration. He often recommended using the quiet time of the pack for prayer or visualization, imagining the liver glowing with vitality and the blood running clean and strong. The liver's cleansing power, though vital, was not the only focus of Cayce's work with castor oil. He also saw its remarkable ability to bring relief where there was pain, swelling, or stubborn inflammation, whether in joints, muscles, or the digestive tract. And in those cases, the results could be just as profound. Pain, in Edgar Cayce's philosophy, was not merely an enemy to be silenced. It was a messenger, sometimes loud, sometimes subtle, alerting us to areas where circulation had faltered, where waste had accumulated, or where tissues were in distress. Instead of numbing the messenger, Cayce sought to soothe the cause. And among his gentlest yet most effective tools for this was the castor oil pack. He often recommended it for joint pain, arthritic knees, aching hips, stiff shoulders, as well as for muscle soreness and lingering inflammation after injuries. But his guidance went beyond the musculoskeletal system. Digestive discomfort, menstrual cramps, even certain post-surgical pains appeared in his records as candidates for the castor oil pack. In each case, the method was almost identical. Oil-soaked flannel over the affected area, gentle heat applied, and a period of stillness to let the body respond. One story from the ARE archives tells of a seamstress plagued by chronic pain in her hands and wrists. Her work required endless stitching, and the strain had left her with swelling and stiffness that worsened each winter. Doctors offered rest, but rest meant no income. When she came to Cayce, his trance reading suggested applying castor oil packs to both wrists each evening, followed by light massage to encourage circulation. Within 3 weeks, she could work without pain for the first time in years. She continued the practice as a preventative measure every winter thereafter. Cayce described the action of the castor oil pack in such cases as both dispersive and restorative. The oil's penetrating nature, he said, helped break up local congestion, whether of lymph, blood, or other fluids, while the warmth relaxed surrounding tissues, allowing fresh circulation to wash through. This fresh blood brought oxygen and nutrients, helping the body repair itself naturally. His recommendations also extended to inflammatory conditions of the abdomen. For example, in cases of colitis or irritable bowel discomfort, he advised placing the pack over the lower belly. Patients often reported that, over time, cramping eased, bloating diminished, and the urge to run to the restroom after every meal lessened. It's worth noting that Cayce didn't claim the castor oil pack was a cure-all. Rather, he presented it as a support, a way to give the body the optimal environment for healing. He was careful to pair it with other lifestyle adjustments: balanced diet, adequate rest, gentle movement, and a constructive mental attitude. From a modern perspective, there's logic here. Chronic inflammation is often linked to poor circulation and sluggish lymphatic drainage. The combination of heat and oil could well encourage both, reducing the chemical signals that keep pain and swelling alive. And for the person lying quietly with the pack in place, the psychological relief, time away from strain, time to breathe, may be just as important as the physical benefits. In listening to these accounts, a pattern emerges. Relief wasn't instant, but it was steady, cumulative, and lasting. That steadiness made the castor oil pack a trusted companion for people living with chronic discomfort. Yet for Cayce, the how of application was just as important as the where or why. He believed the preparation and ritual of making the pack were part of the healing itself. And so, in his readings, he began to lay out in detail exactly how a person should prepare, apply, and care for their castor oil pack. Steps that were simple, but in his mind, sacred. Preparing a castor oil pack, as Edgar Cayce described it, was more than a physical task. It was a small act of devotion to one's own health. He urged people not to rush through the process, but to treat it as a quiet ritual, a moment set apart from the day's demands. The steps themselves were simple. First, a piece of clean, undyed cotton flannel, thick enough to hold the oil, but soft enough to mold comfortably against the skin. Cayce recommended folding it into 3 layers, large enough to cover the area in need. The flannel was then soaked in cold-pressed castor oil until saturated but not dripping. He advised keeping a dedicated piece of flannel for repeated use, storing it in a covered glass container or plastic bag between sessions, and adding more oil as needed to keep it moist. Once the flannel was ready, the person would lie down in a comfortable position, often with a towel beneath them to protect bedding or furniture. The oil-soaked cloth was placed over the target area, most commonly the liver, abdomen, or joints. Over this, a piece of plastic wrap or waxed paper was laid to prevent the oil from staining the heat source. For warmth, Cayce suggested either a hot water bottle or an electric heating pad set to low or medium. The goal was gentle, steady heat, not scalding, but enough to create a soothing sensation that could be felt deep in the tissues. The heat not only enhanced circulation, but also encouraged the oil's active compounds to penetrate more effectively. The duration was typically between 1 and 2 hours. Cayce emphasized that during this time, the person should remain still and relaxed. Many use the time to meditate, pray, or visualize the body healing. Cayce believed this mental focus worked hand in hand with the physical treatment, aligning mind and body toward restoration. After the session, the area could be cleaned with a solution of baking soda and warm water to remove any residual oil. The pack itself was returned to storage, ready for the next use. Cayce often recommended a series of 3 consecutive days using the pack, followed by a rest day, then repeating as needed. In his readings, he warned against treating the process casually. Spilling oil, rushing the setup, or multitasking during the session was not in keeping with the spirit of the remedy. "Let it be a time of quiet," he once advised, "and the body will hear." This ritualized approach had another effect. It made people slow down. In an era when life was becoming faster, noisier, and more mechanical, taking an hour to simply lie still with a warm pack was in itself restorative. Many reported that even before their symptoms changed, they noticed they slept better, felt calmer, and approached the day with more steadiness. Yet Cayce understood that the warmth was not just for comfort. It was a crucial part of the treatment's power. Without heat, the oil's effects were muted. With it, something seemed to awaken deep under the skin, as if the body recognized a signal it had been waiting for. In the next part of our journey, we'll explore exactly why Cayce placed such importance on warmth and how it acted as the unseen partner in the castor oil pack's gentle but profound healing. To Edgar Cayce, warmth was not an optional comfort. It was the vital spark that awakened the castor oil's healing potential. He often compared it to sunlight on a seed. Without that gentle, steady heat, the seed might remain dormant. With it, life begins to stir. In his readings, Cayce explained that heat serves several purposes at once. Physically, it encourages vasodilation, the widening of blood vessels, which improves circulation in the area under treatment. More blood flow means more oxygen, more nutrients, and a faster removal of cellular waste. For the lymphatic system, warmth can act like a pump, encouraging sluggish fluid to begin moving again. But heat also changes the oil itself. Castor oil, thick and viscous at room temperature, becomes more fluid when warmed, allowing it to spread and seep into the skin's deeper layers. Cayce believed this deeper penetration was key to reaching tissues where circulation had slowed, inflammation had taken hold, or toxins had accumulated. He advised against harsh heat. The warmth should be steady, never so hot as to cause discomfort or burns. He favored hot water bottles for their gentle, moist heat, but also recognized the practicality of low to medium heat electric pads. Sometimes he even suggested wrapping the pack with a soft wool blanket to hold the warmth close, turning the treatment into a cocoon-like experience. Patients often reported that the first minutes of warmth brought immediate relaxation, the kind that seemed to melt tension, not only from the body, but from the mind. Muscles loosened, breathing deepened. Some even fell into light sleep. Cayce encouraged this, noting that the body heals more effectively in states of rest and parasympathetic dominance when repair functions take priority over fight or flight. One story from the ARE archives describes a man with chronic gallbladder discomfort. He followed Cayce's instructions to place the castor oil pack over the liver and upper abdomen, applying gentle heat for 90 minutes. At first, the relief was mild and temporary, but after several sessions, he noticed the sharp, nagging sensations fading. More importantly, his digestion improved, and the bloating that had been his constant companion began to subside. Modern physiology offers a possible explanation. Warmth can improve the pliability of connective tissues and enhance the absorption of active compounds like ricinoleic acid into the bloodstream. This compound has been shown to have anti-inflammatory properties, which could partly explain the lasting relief many experienced. For Cayce, however, the warmth carried an almost symbolic role. It was a reminder to the body and the spirit that healing is a gentle process, not an act of force. The soothing heat prepared the body to receive the oil's benefits, much like trust prepares the mind to accept guidance. Still, even the most persuasive theories and poetic metaphors cannot match the power of lived experience. The true measure of Cayce's remedy lay in the people who used it, and in the transformations they recorded, case by case, in the annals of the Association for Research and Enlightenment. It's in those stories, real lives touched and changed, that the castor oil pack's legacy comes alive. And in the next section, we'll step into those lives, hearing the voices of those who found hope and relief in this humble, time-tested remedy. The ARE archives are more than just stacks of paper. They are a chorus of voices from across decades, each telling a story of illness, uncertainty, and often quiet transformation. In these pages, the castor oil pack appears again and again, woven into narratives that begin with pain or fatigue and end with regained comfort, vitality, and peace of mind. One such story tells of a farmer from Ohio who had battled chronic constipation and bloating for years. No matter what laxatives he tried, relief was temporary, and his energy was constantly drained. After reading about Cayce's recommendations, he prepared a castor oil pack and placed it over his abdomen each evening for an hour while listening to the radio. Within a week, his digestion was smoother. After a month, he found himself waking with energy instead of sluggishness. His doctor, initially skeptical, admitted that whatever he was doing seemed to be working, though he couldn't explain why. Another account involves a young mother suffering from postpartum, pelvic pain, and irregular cycles. She was hesitant to take strong medications while caring for her newborn. On a friend's suggestion, she tried the castor oil pack, placing it over her lower abdomen for 3 consecutive nights each week. Not only did her pain ease, but within 2 months her cycles became regular again. She later wrote to the ARE, calling the packs my quiet evening ritual that gave me back my body. Then there was the case of a retired teacher in her 70s, living with arthritis in her hands and knees. Her fingers had grown stiff and sore, making her beloved knitting hobby almost impossible. She began using castor oil packs on her hands while watching television in the evenings. Over time, the swelling subsided, and she could once again hold her needles with ease. It didn't happen overnight, she wrote, but it happened and it stayed. These stories weren't miracles in the sensational sense. They were steady, cumulative changes, symptoms softening, functions returning, life becoming more livable. And while not every person who tried the packs experienced the same results, the sheer volume of positive reports caught the attention of natural health practitioners, even those far removed from Cayce's spiritual framework. Cayce's readings often emphasized that healing was as much about the environment created for the body as it was about the remedy itself. The castor oil pack provided more than physical support. It gave people a reason to slow down, to focus on self-care, and to reconnect with their bodies in a gentle way. Reading through these archives, one senses a quiet defiance against the prevailing belief of Cayce's era that only drugs or surgery could bring real relief. The packs weren't a rejection of conventional medicine, but a reminder that nature's tools still had a place, especially when combined with patience and attentive care. Yet, while personal testimony carried emotional weight, Cayce also hinted that in time, science might provide a clearer understanding of why the castor oil pack worked. And in the decades after his death, research began to reveal clues that aligned surprisingly well with what he had intuited years before. When Edgar Cayce spoke of castor oil stimulating circulation, aiding lymphatic flow, and supporting the liver's detoxification, he was speaking in the language of the early 20th century, rooted in observation and intuition, not in the laboratory evidence we expect today. Yet as decades passed, researchers began to examine castor oil with modern tools, and the results, while still incomplete, began to echo elements of Cayce's insights. One of the most studied components of castor oil is ricinoleic acid, a unique fatty acid that makes up about 90% of the oil. Laboratory studies have shown that ricinoleic acid has notable anti-inflammatory and analgesic properties. Applied to the skin, it appears to penetrate deeply into underlying tissues, influencing local blood flow and possibly interacting with immune cells. This mirrors Cayce's assertion that the oil awakens circulation and eases discomfort. Research has also explored castor oil's effect on the lymphatic system. While direct clinical trials are limited, animal studies suggest that topical application of certain oils, especially when combined with heat, can increase lymphatic drainage in nearby tissues. This lends some credibility to Cayce's claim that castor oil packs can relieve lymph congestion, a concept that, in his time, had no formal scientific framework. Another area of interest is detoxification. Modern science confirms the liver's role as the body's primary detox organ, processing everything from metabolic waste to environmental toxins. Though no study has directly measured castor oil packs' impact on human liver function, anecdotal reports and some small-scale observations indicate improved elimination, reduced bloating, and better digestion, effects that could be related to enhanced circulation and lymph flow in the abdominal region. There's also evidence that topical application of castor oil can increase the activity of certain white blood cells, particularly lymphocytes, which play a central role in immune defense. A 1999 study published in the Journal of Naturopathic Medicine suggested that castor oil pack treatments increased levels of lymphocytes in the blood for several hours after application. This finding dovetails with Cayce's view that the packs help the body build its defenses from within. Still, science has yet to provide a complete explanation. Much of the research is preliminary, and skeptics argue that more rigorous, large-scale studies are needed. Yet the absence of full scientific consensus hasn't diminished the castor oil pack's enduring popularity, perhaps because its safety, simplicity, and low cost make it an easy therapy to explore without risk. Cayce himself might have smiled at this partial validation. He often said that the day would come when science would confirm what nature had always known. In the meantime, he urged people to use what worked, provided it caused no harm, and to observe their own body's responses. Modern science may never fully replicate the holistic view from which Cayce worked, one that blended physical, mental, and spiritual health into a single picture. But the growing body of evidence gives even the most cautious observer reason to look twice at this humble therapy. And yet, no matter how promising a remedy may seem, Cayce also stressed the importance of knowing its limits, using it wisely, and respecting the body's signals. In the next part of our journey, we'll explore the precautions he outlined, guidelines meant to ensure that the castor oil pack remains a safe, supportive ally in healing. For all his enthusiasm about castor oil packs, Edgar Cayce never treated them as a one-size-fits-all remedy. In his readings, he often included careful notes on when, how, and for whom the treatment was appropriate, and equally important when it should be avoided. This sense of respect for the body's individual needs was central to his healing philosophy. The first and most obvious precaution was never to use castor oil internally for the purposes described in his packs, unless specifically advised by a knowledgeable practitioner. Cayce understood, even in his era, that while castor oil could be taken orally as a laxative, it was powerful and could cause cramping, dehydration, or, in excessive doses, harm. His use of the oil in these readings was almost entirely topical. He also advised against using castor oil packs during pregnancy, particularly over the abdominal area. Ricinoleic acid is known to stimulate smooth muscle contractions, and while that effect might be beneficial in certain contexts, it could potentially trigger uterine contractions in expectant mothers. For similar reasons, he suggested avoiding the packs during menstruation if they seemed to increase bleeding or cramping. For people with skin sensitivities or allergies, Cayce recommended testing a small amount of oil on the inner forearm before beginning regular treatments. Although rare, some individuals may experience redness or rash from topical castor oil. If irritation occurred, he suggested discontinuing the packs or applying them over a thin layer of cotton cloth rather than directly on the skin. He also warned that heat should be gentle, never excessive. Burns from overheated pads or bottles were possible, particularly for those with reduced sensation in the skin due to neuropathy or injury. Cayce's instructions emphasized a comfortable warmth, something that soothes rather than shocks. Another key point was the rhythm of use. Cayce often prescribed a pattern, such as 3 consecutive days of packs followed by a day or 2 of rest, rather than continuous daily use for long periods. This allowed the body to respond and integrate the effects, and it prevented overtaxing the system. He viewed healing as a cyclical process, with both active treatment and rest phases. Modern practitioners have added a few more sensible precautions. Avoid using the packs over open wounds or broken skin. If you have a known liver or gallbladder disease, consult a healthcare provider before applying heat over the area. For children or the elderly, use lower heat settings and shorter sessions. Interestingly, Cayce's warnings were never framed in fear. They were simply acknowledgments of the body's natural rhythms and the need to work with them. His goal was always to keep the remedy as safe as it was effective. This balance between encouragement and caution reflects a larger truth in Cayce's teachings. Remedies should be empowering, not overwhelming. A treatment should leave you feeling renewed, not depleted, supported, not strained. With those safeguards in place, the castor oil pack becomes not just a remedy, but a practice, something that can be integrated into a person's life for ongoing support. And Cayce believed that its benefits multiplied when it was paired with something less tangible than oil and heat. The quiet alignment of mind and spirit with the intention to heal. That union of physical therapy with mental and spiritual focus is where we turn next. For Edgar Cayce, the castor oil pack was never just about oil, cloth, and warmth. It was also an opportunity, a sacred pause in the day when the mind could align with the body's healing processes, and the spirit could lend its quiet strength to the work at hand. He often advised his clients to use the time beneath the pack for prayer, meditation, or visualization. This was not simply to pass the minutes more pleasantly. Cayce believed that thoughts were vibrations, and those vibrations influenced the very cells of the body. A mind filled with gratitude, hope, and peaceful expectation would, in his view, create conditions in which healing could unfold more smoothly. Some readings describe this process vividly. While the body rested with the oil and warmth, Cayce urged the person to picture the targeted area glowing with light, circulation moving freely, congestion melting away. Others were told to repeat affirmations, simple phrases like "every cell of my body is in harmony," or "life and strength are flowing through me now." The idea was to give the body clear, positive instructions, reinforcing the physical effects of the therapy with mental intention. This integration of mind and body was central to Cayce's entire approach to health. He rarely separated physical ailments from emotional or spiritual imbalances. A congested liver might also reflect resentment or frustration. Joint pain could be tied to rigidity in attitude. He encouraged people to see physical treatments as part of a larger pattern of self-care that included releasing negative emotions and cultivating constructive ones. Many who followed his guidance found that their castor oil pack sessions became cherished moments of personal retreat. In a dimly lit room with a gentle heat seeping in, they could set aside the noise of the day and listen inwardly. Some journaled their thoughts after each session, noting both physical changes and emotional shifts. Others used the time to pray for others as well as themselves, believing that the act of sending healing thoughts outward strengthened their own recovery. Modern research into mind-body medicine echoes some of Cayce's claims. We now know that relaxation states, such as those reached during meditation or prayer, can lower stress hormones, reduce inflammation, and improve immune function. The parasympathetic nervous system, which governs rest and repair, becomes more active, allowing the body to prioritize healing. Cayce would likely have smiled at this convergence of science and spirituality. To him, the castor oil pack was a bridge. The oil and heat worked on the body's physical structures, while the quiet, intentional mind worked on its energy and spirit. When these forces met, they could produce results neither could achieve alone. In his words, "The body is the temple of the living God, and the mind is the builder." The castor oil pack, then, was a way of tending the temple, gently, patiently, with reverence, while the mind built a vision of health that the body could follow. But for such a practice to truly take root, it couldn't remain an occasional experiment. Cayce encouraged people to weave it into their lives, making it part of a broader rhythm of living well. That's where the true longevity of this remedy could be found, and that's where our journey turns next. In Edgar Cayce's vision of health, a remedy was most powerful when it became part of a balanced, consistent way of living. He did not see the castor oil pack as a once-in-a-while fix for acute discomfort, but as a supportive practice that could help maintain the body's vitality over time. To make it part of daily life was not a demand for rigid routine, but an invitation to create a healing rhythm that fit naturally into one's personal schedule and needs. For many of Cayce's clients, this meant establishing a set time, often in the evening, when the pack could be applied without interruption. Evening sessions were ideal for several reasons. The body was winding down, digestion was mostly complete, and the quiet of the night encouraged a deeper state of rest. The act of preparing the pack became a gentle cue to the nervous system that it was time to slow down. Cayce encouraged looking at the treatment in cycles. For example, a person might use the pack 3 consecutive nights each week, rest for the remaining nights, and repeat. Others found benefit in doing shorter but more frequent sessions. The key, he said, was to observe how the body responded and adjust accordingly. In this way, the treatment evolved into a dialogue between the individual and their own healing processes. He also suggested pairing the packs with other simple, health-supportive habits: a diet rich in fresh vegetables and fruits, moderate exercise to keep circulation strong, and adequate water to assist the body's cleansing. All these, he believed, would amplify the pack's effects. Even posture and breathing received his attention. He reminded people that deep, slow breathing during the session could further enhance oxygenation and relaxation. Some clients developed their own rituals around the practice. One woman placed her pack over the liver while sitting in a comfortable chair by the window, sipping herbal tea and watching the sunset. Another would listen to soft, instrumental music, letting the warmth and rhythm of the notes lull her into a meditative state. Over time, these moments became more than treatments. They became restorative anchors in daily life. There were even cases where whole families adopted the packs in their own ways. A father for his stiff shoulders, a mother for her digestion, an elderly grandmother for her joints. The packs became a symbol of care within the household, a shared language of healing passed down through generations. The beauty of the castor oil pack, as Cayce saw it, was its adaptability. It required no specialized training, no expensive equipment, and could be used in a variety of ways depending on the needs of the moment. It could be a soothing evening ritual, a weekend recovery tool after strenuous work, or part of a more structured wellness program. By making it part of life, the castor oil pack ceased to be just a treatment and became a quiet companion on the journey toward better health. Its real strength lay not only in its physical benefits, but in the mindset it encouraged, a willingness to slow down, to listen to the body, and to care for it patiently. And perhaps that's why, even a century after Cayce first began recommending it, this simple remedy continues to endure. It fits into life not as an intrusion, but as a gentle, sustaining presence. In our final section, we'll reflect on that endurance, the lasting legacy of a remedy so unassuming yet so beloved, and why it still speaks to the human search for natural, meaningful ways to heal. When we look at the long arc of the castor oil pack's journey, from ancient Egyptian tombs to Ayurvedic scrolls to Edgar Cayce's quiet reading room in Virginia Beach, it becomes clear that its staying power lies in more than just its physical effects. It carries with it a philosophy of healing that runs counter to the rush and force so common in modern healthcare. It is slow, patient, and deeply personal. Cayce's legacy with this remedy rests not only in the instructions he gave, but in the way he framed them. He never claimed the castor oil pack was a miracle cure for every ailment. Instead, he spoke of it as a partner to the body, a way of creating the right environment for healing to take place. His words often reminded people that true recovery involves cooperation between body, mind, and spirit, and that even the simplest tools can unlock profound changes when used with intention and care. Over the decades, the castor oil pack has become one of the most frequently cited and practiced remedies from Cayce's readings. Generations have adapted it, some following his steps to the letter, others modifying the method to fit their own rhythms. It has traveled quietly through homes, herbal clinics, and wellness retreats, often passed along in the most personal way, one person sharing with another, "This helped me. Maybe it will help you too." Its appeal is rooted in its accessibility. You don't need advanced medical training to use it. You don't need expensive devices or rare ingredients. It's a remedy you can prepare in your own kitchen, a therapy that invites you to be an active participant in your healing. And in a world where people often feel like passive recipients of care, that agency can be as healing as the treatment itself. Perhaps this is why so many describe not only physical improvements, but also emotional shifts after adopting the practice. The quiet time beneath the pack, the soothing heat, the simple act of showing up for oneself. These can soften more than muscle tension. They can ease the restless mind, restore a sense of connection to the body, and kindle a quiet hope that health is possible. Cayce might say that the real gift of the castor oil pack is that it reminds us healing is not something done to us, but something we participate in. We supply the oil, the warmth, the stillness. The body responds in its own time, in its own way. And that response is not just chemical or mechanical. It's the unfolding of life's own will to restore balance. Even now, with more medical options than Cayce could have imagined, this remedy continues to find new audiences. People turn to it when other methods fall short, or simply because they feel drawn to its gentleness. Some discover it in the pages of a Cayce book, others through a friend's recommendation, and still others in the growing number of holistic health guides that have embraced his work. As we step back from the details, the oil's composition, the warmth, the lymph, the liver, we see the castor oil pack for what it truly is, a bridge between past and present, between the wisdom of tradition and the insights of modern science, between the body's needs and the soul's longing for peace. The enduring power of the castor oil pack lies in its simplicity. In a world of complex treatments, it offers something almost disarmingly straightforward. A piece of cloth, a natural oil, gentle heat, and a stretch of time set aside for rest. Yet within that simplicity is a profound depth. Each session is a small but intentional act of care, an affirmation that the body is worth tending to, that healing's worth slowing down for. Cayce's gift was not just that he shared this method, but that he framed it within a larger vision of health. He urged people to remember that the body is influenced by the mind's thoughts and the spirit's attitudes. The castor oil pack, in his eyes, was not merely a topical application. It was a chance to align all three realms toward one goal, the restoration of balance. When you apply the pack, you create a pocket of stillness in your day. In that stillness, your nervous system shifts from the high alert of constant doing into the calm, restorative mode of being. Your breath slows, your thoughts soften. You may even find yourself feeling more grounded, more connected to the quiet rhythms of your own life. This is the space where the body's natural healing mechanisms thrive. And perhaps this is the true secret behind its lasting appeal. It's not that castor oil is rare or exotic. It's readily available and modestly priced. It's that the practice invites you to participate in your own healing with something you can hold in your hands, something you can prepare yourself, something that carries the whisper of an ancient lineage and the reassurance of modern sense. In this way, the castor oil pack becomes more than a treatment. It becomes a relationship, a conversation between you and your body, guided by the wisdom of a man who believed that healing is always possible and often simpler than we think. Edgar Cayce left behind many remedies, but few have traveled as far or touched as many lives as this one. It stands as a reminder that while the tools of medicine will continue to evolve, the human need for gentle, patient, hands-on care will never disappear. In every warm pack, in every quiet hour set aside for it, that need is met. And so, as you fold the flannel, pour the golden oil, and settle in under the comforting weight of warmth, you are participating in a tradition that stretches back thousands of years and forward into an unknown future. It is a small act, yes, but as Cayce might say, it is in the small acts, repeated with faith, that great healing begins.